It's my honor to introduce our next speaker. You can read all about him in the program, but I want to tell the other side of the story. I first met Marshall Smith when he was a brash, young, obviously bright staffer in the Gordon Campbell government. Marshall worked hard and played hard, real hard. He began a struggle with addictions that resulted in him leaving his career in politics and descending all the way to the streets of the downtown east side in Vancouver. And he lived in and out of dumpsters for 4.5 years. A caring VPD member appreciated a spark in Marshall and wanted to help. Basically, and this is important, he was offered jail or treatment. He was incented. Marshall got treatment, got clean, became an advocate for other sufferers, and rededicated his life to change in this field. After working in the treatment field for 10 years, he was recruited by Premier Jason Kenney as Chief of Staff to the Minister for Mental Health and Addiction in Alberta. Marshall is the principal architect of what is now known as the Alberta Recovery Model, work that earned him the unofficial title of Alberta's drug czar. Marshall rose all the way to the top, taking one of the country's most challenging and powerful political roles, Chief of Staff to the Premier of Alberta. Some say he ran the Alberta government for the last 3 years. Marshall recently returned to the private sector as Vice President for Western Canada at Rubicon Strategy. My real excitement and interest in having Marshall with us today is only partly due to what has taken place in Alberta and his role. I have told Marshall on more than one occasion that he's a hero of mine, and he is. When people question whether or not these addictions can be overcome, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Marshall Smith.
Thanks, Jess. Thanks so much. What you live in, you learn. What you learn, you practice. What you practice, you become. And what you become has consequences. I'm pleased to be back in BC, my home province. It's good to see all of you, and thank you for all of the great work that is going on here. But I have to tell you, as a friend, because friends are honest with each other, BC, you've been living in it. You've learned this. You've practiced it. You've become this. And there's consequences for that. And what I mean by that is to move on from where you are today is going to require a very different type of thinking. Not the same thinking that got us here today, but a different mental model. I'm not here to be political today. This is a bipartisan event. I'm here simply to talk about what we've done in Alberta, the successes that we've had, the failures we've had, and the things we've learned. I invite you to take what you want and leave the rest. There's a lot of great work being done here in BC by many of the people here in this room. So in Alberta, we believe that with the right care and support, recovery is possible. That may seem like a pretty simple statement, but it means everything. Recovery is possible from the illness of addiction and mental health. And of course, that will mean different things to different people. But it must be, in my view, our primary goal to get people off of drugs, to get them into recovery, to reunite them with their families, to become employed, and to retake their position as a citizen in the community. In Alberta in 2019, we began a breathtaking process of transformation of our addiction mental health system. We are giving Albertans who are challenged by mental health and addiction an opportunity to pursue recovery. That is our marquee policy. In the past, like in British Columbia, there were all kinds of barriers and reasons why this wasn't working and the system was broken. And you heard that all the time. The system is broken. I would tell you today, the system isn't broken. There is no system, right? There is no system to begin with. And despite all of the good work that is going on by very hardworking people in the field, none of these services, or very few of them, are interlaced with each other in a way that makes it possible for the community to have success. I submit to you that our way is better. We're creating, and a lot of people get hung up on the recovery piece, you know, the recovery versus harm reduction thing. And we need to move past that because the reality is we need both. The real thing that is on the marquee is in the recovery-oriented system of care is system of care, right? One thing has to lead to the next. You've heard it talked about as a continuum, as a system of care. You can't see the bottom there. We have 4 pillars in our Alberta recovery model. They're different than yours in BC. They are prevention, intervention, treatment, and recovery. And from a practical perspective, in BC, help me out, I think that it's harm reduction, prevention, treatment. What we've done is incorporated harm reduction into prevention, and we've removed enforcement off the board and made enforcement a part of intervention, because intervention into this is so much more than just police. It's workforces, it's families, it's all kinds of things like that. This shift is a monumental shift in Alberta. It's bigger than Portugal. We have people coming from all over the world to look at what we've done. It's very exciting. We want care wherever it's needed, when it's needed. The model recognizes that recovery is possible and will look different with every person. Strong communities create an opportunity for recovery. Success in recovery is about whole life improvement. And most importantly, recovery is contagious, right? Just like disorder and crime of the broken window is contagious, so too is recovery, right? We are inducing in Alberta a recovery contagion in our cities. That's what we want. I want to talk to you a minute about leadership. Leadership is really what I talk about now. As I stepped back from my role as Chief of Staff to the Premier, I wanted to come out into the private sector so that I could be a part of animating this conversation nationally in rooms like this. So I gave up my high perch, and out I came. And really one of the things that I'm focusing on with political leaders and business leaders across the country are first steps. In addiction, we call this sort of the pre-contemplative stage or the contemplative stage. And that's really where I see you right now, Vancouver, in a stage of contemplation of change. And the first step in making that change happen is figuring out a couple of things. The governance. How are we going to work together? How are decisions going to be made? Who's in charge? Who is in charge? Gavin, who's in charge? Linda, who's in charge? Does anybody in this room right now, we're all here wanting to change the community. Can anybody tell me who's in charge? The mayor's in charge, the is in charge, the minister's in charge. Who's in charge? This is a really fundamental question. Who is in charge of leading this transformation? Who is responsible for the vision of what our communities are going to look like? And once we figured that out, what is the construct for decision making? And I would submit to you that in Alberta, the answer is this: the Premier is in charge. She is in charge. She's appointed a committee of cabinet because that's how our government makes decisions. That committee is responsible for overseeing this transformation. The deputy ministers who sit behind them at the cabinet table are responsible for execution, and they're held accountable for doing that. And if they don't get it right, they get replaced, right? So we have to have a deliberative body. And in our system of government, that is how decisions are made. And that's how we did it in Alberta. We've created a couple of agencies to support our work. We created a brand new Crown agency that's unique around the world called CORE, or the Canadian Centre for Recovery Excellence. It's a Crown agency that its job is to monitor the implementation and evaluation of the services that we're putting in place. It has special powers to procure and compel data from across the spectrum of government agencies and contractors. You cannot withhold the data from CORE, right? You must turn it over when they ask for it, because we don't have time to be debating with you whose data set, this data set, privacy, this, that, and the other thing. It's in the law. The CORE Act governs how data will be handled, and that's how we analyze outcomes. It's how we analyze data and how we move quickly. We took all of the authorities, and in Alberta or in British Columbia, I think you have about 5 health authorities and First Nations Health Authority and a couple of other agencies. We pulled all responsibility and money for policy, program, and practice out of all of those authorities, and we created one standalone authority, one throat to choke, so to speak. We gave them all of the money, all of the authority, and all of the policy, and we said, you're responsible for fixing this and for delivering these problems or delivering these solutions. We removed the board of directors from the authority. The CEO of the authority, the CEO of CORE, and the Deputy Minister of Mental Health and Addiction report directly to the minister, who report directly to cabinet. They are responsible. They are in charge. Our goal with that is to build a world-class, publicly funded continuum of care where every Albertan can get access to what they need. We're focused on 5 key areas in our model. We're increasing access to treatment. We've added 10,000 new treatment spaces, okay? Our goal is to have excess beds. I will have done my job when there is always a bed available. It's a lofty goal. Maybe we won't attain it, maybe we will, but we're not gonna stop trying to do that. We're removing barriers to care. We've gone out and we have indexed every available bed and resource in the province. We have contracted them up publicly. Nobody in Alberta takes their wallet out of their pocket to pay for treatment anymore. No family will ever have to make the difficult decision of mortgaging their house or selling their car to get them the care their loved one needs. They put away their MasterCard and they simply swipe their care card and they come in. We're building new facilities at a breathtaking pace. I'm going to talk a little bit about them. In order for any of this to be successful, none of these processes work unless you have a place for people to go. They have to have a place for them to go. You want to clear the streets, you got to have a place for them to go, okay? So to that end, we're spending upwards of $400 million constructing brand new facilities. We're before Treasury Board right now for an additional $600 million for our compassionate intervention facilities. 5 of those facilities are in partnership with First Nations, which is an incredibly important part of the system that we're building together. These are on First Nations land delivered by Alberta's First Nations in partnership with government. It's the first time that a province has funded and built facilities on First Nations land in partnership with First Nations, right? First Nations are with us in the design of our system. This is what they look like. These are massive facilities. Most of them, and there's 11 of these, most of them are the size of 4 football fields each. They're huge and they're beautiful. Because if you want to tell somebody that they got to leave behind their comfort, their the alley or their community of friends, you have to give them a more appealing community to go to. Okay? Not just a brief episode of care in a hospital bed. You have to replace the community. The folks that are out there on the east side or anywhere around Vancouver, they are part of a community. Now, it may not be a community that is appealing to you, but it serves their needs, right? And it's how they get their needs met. And so you have to replace community while at the same time delivering treatment and housing. Our recovery communities are also a model of housing built on a treatment platform, not just housing with some supports. They go in here and it's a commitment. These are some of the other ones that we're building. I think this one is on the Siksika First Nation. These are beautiful facilities. We have a lot of different types of rooms, singles, doubles, triples. The Lakeview Recovery Community is our largest. It's a 40-acre facility with 23 buildings. This is the Lethbridge Recovery Community. We right now have 4 of them in operation. The rest of them are due to complete construction at the end of the year. You can stay in these new RCs for up to a year with individualized care. Some take shorter, some take longer, but it's all individualized to the individual person, and it's really a whole of life transformation for them. This is the Red Deer Recovery Facility that we opened about 1.5 years ago. Okay, so those are our massive expansion of treatment centers all across the province. We're making medication-based treatment, which is a huge part of our model, available. We have the gold standard virtual opioid dependency program. We have no wait lists, no matter where you live in Alberta, any time of day, any day a week, no matter where you live, free of charge, same day, no wait list. You can start on opioid substitution medication immediately. We've engaged with the police. I don't know if there's any left still here. They're an incredibly important part of this equation. They are with us in the development of the model. We allow our police in Alberta to get people connected with opioid medication on the spot, in the back of their police car, on the sidewalk, in the jail cell, wherever they may be. We get them connected and they can start that immediately. It's been a huge part of our model, and in particular, widespread funding and implementation of the opioid medication Sublocade, which is an injectable medication that lasts 30 days in the individual system. Everybody should be on this, right? If you are an opioid addict, in my view. I'm not a doctor, but I play one on television. We're prioritizing the mental health of young Albertans. We have hundreds of millions of dollars of investment in prevention, 60 mental health and addiction classrooms in our schools across Alberta. We have to turn off the taps, so to speak, of new cases of addiction coming up. Alberta is an international leader in recovery. Let's talk about early signs of success. This scale goes at the high end from 2016 down to 2024. As a result of our action, we have almost eliminated fatalities by pharmaceutical opioids, right? That data is undeniable. Methamphetamine, you can see the two spikes, where it's large there at peak. Those are the two COVID lockdowns. And death involving methamphetamine on board, is trending down very sharply. That's great to see. Alcohol, also, you can see the COVID peaks trending down, very, very nicely. Non-pharmaceutical opioids, this is fentanyl. We are seeing, and while I should preface this by saying that these numbers are down in provinces across the country, and including here in British Columbia, I'm not sure what the numbers are right now. But in Alberta, we are down 40% as a result of all of the efforts that are going on in Alberta, 40% year over year. In fact, if you compare, this is a little bit more of a shocking number. If you compare May of 2023 in the city of Calgary, we had 70 fatal overdoses, 70. And in May of 2024, we had 17. Okay. Our model is comprehensive, accessible, and recovery focused. Okay. So I appreciate you listening to that. I want to tell you, I'm optimistic for British Columbia. I'm hopeful of what can be achieved here. The first step in getting this together is about leadership. It's about governance. It's about figuring out who's in charge. It's about articulating a vision, gaveling it into law, and then executing on that vision, right? And that is, I believe, really needs to be the focus right now. I want to give, because this is a nonpartisan event, I want to give a shout out to Premier Eby, who has created a cabinet committee. I don't know if the minister is still here, has created a cabinet committee, and I'm hopeful that that is a sign that they may undertake that. We'll see. I'm going to cap off a little bit by talking about compassionate intervention. How much more time do I have?
Go ahead.
Okay. It's in listening to the room today and the folks that are up here, there's been a lot of talk about involuntary care. In Alberta, we call it the Compassionate Intervention Act. And we are engaged right now in drafting this bill. It will be the law of Alberta, called the Compassionate Intervention Act. And what it does for all ages is it creates a couple of things. A, we have to have the facilities. That's number one. If you don't make the investments in places to get people treatment, then you can talk about involuntary care till you're blue in the face, but you're not going to achieve it, okay? So you have to get busy building the facilities. We have 2 specialized facilities that are secure, one in Edmonton, one in Calgary. Both of them are around $300 million apiece. They're state-of-the-art healthcare facilities. About 25% of the facility is compassionate intervention admissions and intake. The other 75% of the building is secure mental health facilities. The hearing rooms are right in the building, so everything is done in one facility. We don't need to move people around all over the place. This is how it works. That is different from the option that BC is going with now, but I think it can change. This is a law that says that if you are a danger to yourself as a result of drug use, then there is a list of people, parents, elders, relatives, police officer, doctor, child protection officer, social worker, counselor, who may make an application to the Intervention Commission, which is a Crown agency that the bill is creating, to hear these cases. These intervention cases will not be heard in a courtroom. They will not be heard by judges. They will be heard by a quasi-judicial panel of community members whose job it is to make sure you get the care that you need when you can't make decisions for yourself, and to guard the social contract in terms of what is necessary for the community. So One of the family members, for example, makes an application for intervention. It goes to the commission. Because it's a healthcare process, they look at all of that information. In the balance of that evidence, if they believe you're a danger to yourself, then you can be apprehended and brought to the facility where you're given supports and detox and care. You go before a panel. This is not a courtroom. This is a boardroom table where we sit in a circle and we talk about what's going on for you, what care you need, and how we can get you connected with it. And if necessary, we can make an order, right, to expedite that, and then you'll get treatment in one of our many, many facilities. You have the right to counsel. You have the right to be represented in that process. Of course, we are striving to have this be a fully constitutionally compliant process. I should also say, if you are First Nations, the panel that you sit with are made of elders who are appointed commissioners, right, in this process. And if there's a treatment order made, then you have the ability to go to one of our First Nations operated and run facilities, which are land-based healing and very culturally appropriate and relevant. So there's a stream for First Nations people as well, which was really important for us that we heard from the First Nations of Alberta that we worked with. If it is discovered during that process that you've got significant mental health issues, severe mental illness, then you simply go next door from the compassionate intervention facility and you receive mental health care until you are stable in that and we can deal with the substance use issues. So that's the way that we're doing it. We decided early on not to muck around with the Mental Health Act. We didn't want, we wanted a clean process for this and one that we can build on and one that was not reliant on the healthcare system, doctors, et cetera, to be making some of these decisions. Obviously, medical people are involved in that process, but we wanted that mechanism to be more community-based, looking after the individual and looking after the needs of the community. One other really important part of our system that I'll talk about is corrections. There was not a corrections representation here, but I highly recommend to you at your next gathering, corrections is critical. Corrections is where we send people to get corrected, or that's what we should be doing. And I had a bit of a freak out with our folks in Alberta where I just said, this isn't working for anybody. We're spending a fortune on correctional facilities, putting people in there. And the reality is, with the illness of addiction and mental health, far too often, the people who need the help the most in our society get the least. And the people who need the least often get the most. And so we sat around in our process and said, wouldn't it be cool if we turned that on its head? What would happen if we gave the people who needed the most? And let's see what happens. So we took living units out of our correctional centers and turned them into treatment centers. So we built treatment centers inside our correctional centers. We staffed them with therapists. And I got to tell you, they're called therapeutic living units. We have inmates lined up around the block to get into the TLUs. And they are the best treatment programs that we have. I've been doing treatment for 15 years. And they are the best, most intense treatment processes that we have. These inmates sit in a circle for 9 hours a day doing the deep transformative work. I mean, like the ugly crying, right? And they come out of there changed. And they have the ability to go from a TLU and hot transfer right into one of our recovery communities to finish their treatment. It's a system of care, right? I'm being told that our time is coming to an end. I'm sure we'll see each other again. And in the meantime, I wish you the best and good luck in your endeavors, BC. We're hopeful, and I'm looking forward to kicking your ass in Edmonton tonight as the Oilers play the Canucks. So thank you very much for the time. Thanks. Yeah, you got it.
Thanks very much, Marshall, and we look forward to hearing more about the successes experienced in Alberta and hopefully learn from them.